In this lesson, we want to talk about odds. We all have had some exposure to odds before. For example, we may talk about the odds against us passing this course, or we might talk about the odds in favor of the Redskins being in the Super Bowl. Or we might talk about the odds in favor of a person winning the state lottery. So odds is something that we're somewhat familiar with, but in this lesson we want to maybe become a little more familiar with what odds are and exactly how they relate to probability. Now, let's say that the odds for A are A to B. The odds for A are in favor of A, or A to B. This means that, for example, if we have the odds for A are 2 to 3, the odds for A are 2 to 3. We can express this as 2 colon 3. That's the same thing as saying 2 to 3. So that's another way of expressing odds. You can express odds using the word 2 or using the colon. Both ways mean the same thing. Now, what we're interested in doing now is finding the probability of A. If we know the odds for A, how do you find the probability of A? If you know the odds for A, and for is the key word there, if you know the odds for A are A to B, then the probability of A happening would be A over A plus B. Once again, if the odds for A are A to B, then the probability of A is A divided by A plus B. For example, if we have event A, and we know that the odds of A are, the odds for A, or in favor of A, are 2 to 3. If we know that those are the odds, then we can find the probability for A. The probability for A, or of A, equals, in this case, 2. A is your 2. The first number represents the 4, and the second number represents the against. First number represents the 4, the second number represents the against. When you're saying that the odds for A, the first number is the 4 number. So that goes on top, the 2. That's A in the formula. In your denominator, you add the 2 and the 3 together. So I would have 2 plus 3, and that would give me a probability of 2/5 or 0.4 or 40%. 40%. Any problem involving odds, if you know the odds for an event, then you can figure the probability for that event by doing this. Now, suppose we have the problem written in another form. Instead of the odds for A, suppose we have the odds against A. Suppose we know that the odds against A, the odds against event A happening are let's say 4 to 5. Now it might be written this way, 4 to 5, 4 to 5, or it might be written as 4 colon 5. Some of the problems in your textbook are written this way, and some are written this way, so you have to know both ways. Now, when you know the odds against something happening, for example, if we know that the odds against A are A to B, if we know that the odds against A or A to B, we can find the probability of A happening. If we know the odds for, we can find the probability as we just finished doing. If we know the odds against, we can find the probability of A occurring. So that probability in this case, formula for that probability of A would be equal to not A on top this time, but B on top over A plus B. If you have against, the second number in the ratio goes on top if you're looking for the probability of A happening. If I were looking for the probability of A not happening, then it would be just the other way around. But if you're looking for the probability that A will occur, and you know that the odds against A or A to B, the second number in the ratio goes on top, and you have the sum of the two numbers on the bottom. For example, if we know that the odds against A are 4 to 5, the probability of A happening would be 5 over 4 plus 5, not 4 over 4 plus 5. Because in this situation, you have the against, you have the against first, then you have the 4. When you have the problem written in this form, when the problem says the odds against, that means that the against is the first number, and the 4 is the second number. So if you want the probability of A or the probability for A, you have to put the 4 on top. And as we mentioned before, when you have the odds for A, the first number represents the 4, the second number represents the against. So you want to be aware of that as you work your problems out. Now in this case, the probability of A would be 5/9. Probability of A would be 5/9. Then of course we can change that into a decimal and into a percent. So these are the types of problems that you have to do that relate to odds. Once again, if you know the odds for something, the first number in the ratio goes on top. You add the two numbers together, that goes on the bottom. That gives you the probability for A. If you know the odds against A happening, then the first number in the ratio is the against part, the second number is the for part. If you want the probability for A or the probability of A happening, you have to put the second number on top and the sum of the two numbers on the bottom to get that probability. So this is the relationship between odds and probability.